those who are open to living a life of freedom, self awareness, passion, and clarity about their purpose. Every week we have a discussion, and this week's discussion is when is it time to stand up? This week I have a special guest, Jenee Michelle. Jenee is a professional writer and a freelance journalist on most days. She also works alongside small businesses to help them shape their online brands through website development and social media strategy. Her side projects include working with local law enforcement and government officials on sex trafficking initiatives. Her background includes several years in the television media arena and television production. She's an Emmy-nominated producer and speaker, and some of her most impactful work has been done in the business and life coaching spaces through her brand, Be Your Own Damn Hero. She's written 2 books, which can be found on Amazon. Welcome, Jenee.
Hey, Carmen. Thanks so much for having me. It's always nice to have a discussion with a friend who also works in the same arena of just making life better all the time. So I appreciate having me here. So,
yes,
thank you.
I'm very excited for our conversation tonight. So for those who are joining, this is part 2. Last week, I mentioned we're going to experience a lot of death this year in 2022, death of celebrities, death of loved ones, and death of our old self as we heal. There will be death of old perspectives and old ways of doing things as well. So in this week's discussion, we're focused on the latter, death of old perspectives, old way of doing things, and dealing with our old self. And so I saw a post that Jenee made on social media. I guess you probably hear that a lot, don't you?
A couple times, every once in a while.
And I'd like to share it with everyone because one of the qualities I love about Jenee is she asks the questions that people don't want to talk about. And so the question, or I guess I should say the post says, taking the apolitical stance is no longer acceptable in my opinion. It's an excuse to avoid conflict. People think I'm a news junkie. It was my career for several years after all, but I'm a truth junkie. I love that, by the way. More than anything, I can't stand to sit by and ignore injustices happening all around us and do nothing or say nothing. It's not easy talking about this. Sitting out here on an island asking hard questions and posting unpopular things, knowing the world judges you all the while, it's bravery I never knew I had in me. I can't sit by and talk about shopping hauls, house renos, or sports games like parts of society or humanity aren't on fire. I just can't do it on principle anymore. I said what I said. And so I actually think took a day or 2. And I reached out to you and I was like, that was powerful because it got me to think of, am I standing up? Am I speaking out? And so that's the conversation I want to have tonight, and share with us what inspired you to write that.
I think that's probably my kind of homeostasis. That's kind of where I'm at all the time. And I probably write a lot of things about that, but sometimes when I put the right words together, it hits a little differently. And so I tend to write a lot of posts saying a lot of the same things in different ways, because I think you have to reach everyone in a different way. Things have to be said and merged, and semantics need to be used, and behaviors and attitudes, and all these things have to kind of come together as kind of word sandwiches, if you will, to sometimes deliver to the right people. And that one happened to hit with you. I think I get pretty exhausted, and I think there was someone else who had said something. I think it was Zuby on Twitter the other day, who is a UK kind of fitness and music guy. But he kind of sides on the whole conservatism kind of side. But anyway, he had said something about I used to find it really nice that people, I read this after my post, which I'm like, oh, it's in the water, in the air. That, I found it nice where people would direct message me and say, hey, thanks for putting up the good fight, and thanks for speaking your mind, and thanks for standing up, and all of that. Thanks for speaking out. And I get those messages all the time. And so I heard that, and he's like, I used to really think that that was cool, and I was like gracious, but now I'm like, I don't want to hear it anymore.
Mhm.
Like, we need to hear from you.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I had a little gathering last night with some friends, and we were talking about how all of us have a role to play in this, what we call life, and we assimilated it to a symphony, and we need all of the instruments, okay, or we need all of the warriors on the field, if you will, and we need triage, and we need like the tool makers, and we need all of you on the field.
Yes.
And you all have a different role, and it doesn't mean that you have to show up the way that I do or the way that Carmen does, but it means you do have to show up. We're gonna win because good is always gonna win. But you
Absolutely.
also have to freaking participate. That doesn't mean non-participation. Like, I know we're gonna win, God wins, we're gonna win. And I'm like, yes, but only if you participate.
So I want to dive into that a little bit. So as a spiritual coach, I hear that all the time. And a lot of what I'm hearing is, Jesus is coming back to save us. It's very biblical. And I'm also not um, a literalist of the Bible. So, so for me, I believe that God is waiting on us, like you said, to take a stand and to go do something,
Mhm,
because that's where God meets us with action.
mhm,
Once we take action, the universe comes in with action tenfold.
mhm,
And for me, once we do that, then that's when the magic happens. Kind of like up in Ottawa, what's happening right now in Canada.
mhm.
They took a stand. And I'm really hoping that people here in the United States are taking notice instead of doing one of these and saying, "Oh, that could never happen here." Because it absolutely can.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of has started in a way already.
Yeah, I think, you're seeing a level of bravery that I don't even think that Canadians thought that they had.
Mhm.
But that is a very good example of what it is to poke the bear too many times. And then the bear says, "Enough." And you're seeing that demonstrated. But they learned something from the American, non-insurrection, the J6 situation. They learned to be respectful of the space and to show their best side, show their best humanity. And that's why you saw them dancing in the streets and bringing out bounce houses and sitting in jacuzzis and cleaning off sidewalks and feeding the hungry, and trying to take care of the communities while being loud, probably. Yeah, I'm like, I get it. I lived through the BLM riots. I get it.
Right.
But they tried to burn my building down. A little different than bounce houses. A little different. Um, so when I was, and this reminds me of some of the conversation I had last night with the group that I was with, and I have a fairly salty tongue, and I tend to want to speak direct truths, the truth junkie type of thing. And I went into journalism for a reason, because I saw that the truth mattered.
Mhm.
All right. And I know that the truth is different for a lot of people, and there might be various levels and perspectives in that. Okay. And everybody's truth may be just, a little bit different. But my goal always is to go, why are you not treating this the same way you treated that?
I agree.
Yeah. It's this level of hypocrisy. And so there's no truth in there, right? Now we're into the space of lies and deception. And I just think that, if anything, you have to speak the truth. You can't lie to yourself. And that's why I'm like, being apolitical is lying to yourself. You have an opinion. We all have them. And saying that you're apolitical is not acceptable anymore, because we all know you have an opinion, but you would rather your safety is more important than your speech.
If people are worried about what people others are going to say about them.
Yeah. And, or the complications, or, the consequences of that. But you will pay a price for not saying something. You will pay a price no matter what decision you make. This is something that Jordan Peterson talks about a lot. You will ultimately pay a price for making a non-decision or not speaking. And you will have to, open yourself to other possibilities of what could happen to you and your family when you do not speak up.
And I feel like we're seeing that already.
Yeah.
I feel like that veil was lifted in 2020 because after how many years of us as Americans not speaking up, now we're here.
Right. Right. And I think, I know this is something that I heard Jordan Peterson say in a speech, not a recent speech of his, but I heard it recently. And I've heard it before, but I'm reminded of this because we're talking about truth, right? And he said, a lot of people are like, well, in his world, it's professors, and when I get tenure, and when when I make associate producer, professor or whatever, then I'll speak up. Then I'll say something. Then I'll feel like I have room to say the speech. And he's like, okay, well, let's look at that. Let's handle that. Let's go ahead and tackle that. It will never be safe. It will never be safe to speak up and say what you want to say and say what needs to be said. And if you can't do it in these spaces, then you're probably not doing it in a lot of other spaces of your life. And that's a whole nother ball of wax, right? Like you and I probably have seen with people we've coached. So if you cannot be honest with yourself in front of an anonymous screen, an anonymous keyboard, in many cases, if you're on Twitter and you're one of those likes to be anonymous, which I'm not a fan of, but but if you cannot be honest there, then you probably cannot be honest with yourself in many other areas of your life. And that's just the reality.
So what do you think is holding people back from besides the judgment and maybe losing friends, which, by the way, I posted a picture. It was a meme, essentially, I think in 2020. And a lot of people didn't read the meme. They didn't read the words, and they were triggered by the picture.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of hate for it. And also I lost a lot of friends. And to that, I was like, see you later. I was okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think is the reason why people aren't taking a stand or speaking up?
Well, I mean, obviously the bigger driver is fear. Hold on. I have a son that's asking me a question. Yes. Thank you. The pizza's arrived.
Yes.
I think the big driver is fear. And people want to be safe. And I can't reiterate enough that it's, you will pay a price for that. No matter which decision you make, you will pay a price for either staying silent or speaking up. So I would argue then the better question to ask yourself is do I want to die on my word and what I stand for? And do I want to show up going, you know what, I might be an idiot, I might be biased, I might not know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to stand up for what I feel right now in this time space reality.
Yes. Instead
of becoming a peasant or a slave. Yes. I would rather stand up and be an idiot and fall on my face and let everybody watch me, because quite frankly, nobody cares. They're never going to remember anyway. They don't care about you that much. I hate to tell you that, but they don't. And sure. And they're going to forget in like a month that you even said anything or that you blurted out something that you believed, because they're too worried about paying their electric bill and buying a baseball mitt for Tommy. And that's just the truth. So we attribute so much. We think that people care so much about what we think. That is a level of narcissism that all of us have to deal with at some point. That is somewhat healthy and somewhat not healthy, because when it impacts your life and you're not able to speak up, then you're allowing those opinions of those people to dictate the way that you show up in the world.
Yes.
And I think that's the driver. People are imagining what they think is going to be the consequence. And I know they see consequences. I mean, you're seeing it from the people who have even contributed to the convoy in Ottawa, who are getting frozen bank accounts. They're afraid. What if I don't have access to my money? What if you don't have access to your money? What are you doing to prepare for that? What if you don't have access to food? What if you
Ex
don't have access to heat? What are you doing to prepare yourself? Those should be your bigger questions. That should be your bigger concern. Your safety is always at risk if you're not actually answering those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's my question now, is the people who aren't speaking up, are they the people who are awake like us and we understand and see what's really happening and they're just afraid to speak up about it? Or what does that look like? Or are they still not awake, but they still don't want to say that they're not awake?
Well, I think you're going to have a little bit of everything.
Okay.
I think there's people who are just, they're like, well, I'm not into politics. I know plenty of people are like, I'm not into politics. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Are you into a mortgage? Because you're
This
going to need politics. Are you into your money? Because you're going to need politics. Are you
this
into
is
your family and their security? Are you into your children's school? Then you need to be involved in politics to a degree. I'm not asking people to get into it the way that I do. I don't, or to know it the way that I do. And I'm sure it's really intimidating for people to be like, I don't know where to even begin. I don't even know where to go for like legitimate information. And that's what requires you to do the work, y'all. You have to do the work. You have to go. I mean, this is the reason why I go to Twitter. Yeah, I become the worst version of myself on Twitter. I am not going to lie. I am not a holy woman on that platform, but I know the enemy. And I say enemy with a small e because I also feel for those people, because I feel like, man, if I could just say the right words to them, maybe they'll kind of question in their mind, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I need to open my mind. And I do the same thing when somebody says something to me that I don't agree with, and I have to sit with that going, that person might have a point.
Mhm.
So I go and I sit in the ring because I don't want to have an opinion and not be sitting in the ring, because, Brene Brown will tell you all day long that you cannot have an opinion unless you're in the arena, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, so I make sure that I show up in the arena, because I'm not gonna like tap out like that. Um, and I just go to make sure that I'm like getting a full picture of what people feel and believe. So I'll go to a Twitter to do that, or I'll read a series of articles for an independent journalist that I feel like I can trust because they've been right over and over again. And I collect data, I collect information, I collect data, and I entertain all kinds of crazy, nutty things all the time, because at the heart of it, I am a journalist. It's my job. It's my job to entertain crazy information.
Right.
And then to go figure out like what level crazy are we dealing with? Kind of crazy, kind of like, ooh, that could maybe happen crazy. Ooh, that is totally off. That is in Mars, So, I mean, you have to do the work, and maybe just tackle the things that you like, maybe just tackle the topics that mean something to you. If you're in real estate, you should tackle those topics and find out what your government is doing to screw you in your real estate deals. If you're a parent, find out what your kids are doing at school and what they're teaching.
Exactly. That's what I was getting ready to say. I have a lot of friends who um that is their main focus, is the whole mask not mask with their kids at school. What does this look like? And that's what they've been focused on
Yeah.
for this year. Because I know people on both sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
want a mask, they don't want a mask. And like you said, that's been their focus.
Right. And you can tackle things like one at a time like that. We're all busy, and most people don't have the time that I do. So I don't expect people to show up in the arena the way that I do,
Yeah.
but I do expect them to show up.
Yes.
Especially when you have, this is the problem I have with like the influencer space. I am not in an influencer space. I do not have those kinds of numbers. I came off TikTok. I had a really great following there, but I came off TikTok because I didn't want to participate in the platform because of its like background. And that was my biggest following, right? But I think that everybody is an influencer to a degree, but when I see people who have, tens of thousands of followers and they do not talk about things that matter, and I don't mean taking a hardcore right or left stance, but I mean talk about things that matter.
Yes.
then I'm looking at that person of like all they care about is protecting their money. So that person, all they're worried about is protecting their money because they don't want to lose their followers. They don't want to piss off their customers. They want to play it safe. And because they're like, well, I want to respect, all of my followers and respect. And I know that those people have opinions and they don't share them. And I'm like, we need you to share your
Mhm.
ideas because we don't have your platform.
Exactly. And I know there's a lot of things that I say on here and even posts. The feedback on some of them I get is people are triggered. And
Yeah.
sometimes you'll see me write and say, if you are triggered, ask yourself why.
Hmm.
Because that has nothing to do with what I just said.
Hmm.
And that has everything to do with you, something there.
Hmm.
There's still healing that gets to happen.
Yeah. It's I I ride this weird wave of feeling like I don't want to feel like I'm sitting on a high horse or in some kind of like looking down on people way. I mean, if I tell somebody they're being a moron on Twitter, I'm not trying to do that from being, like on my high horse. I just mean like that is a moronic idea. Like you're not even looking at the whole picture here. You're picking up your goalposts and you're moving downfield.
Yes.
Um, but I go through this weird kind of thing where I'm like, and I've talked to some of my friends about this, my closest friends, and it's a little bit hard to say out loud, but I do not get like triggered that much, which is funny because people are like, you're so like animated and you're so this and that online and blah blah blah, blah. And I'm like, the only thing I'm triggered for is the truth. So I'm not even that mad at people for not showing up or not speaking up or their lack of participation or whatever. In some ways, I'm upset with them because they are not interested in the truth.
Mhm.
And I find that matters a lot more than how they're going to participate. So, and some people might feel more comfortable being able to participate in their own circles of friends and family and, feel safer in that environment, or a little less safe because some of those people might not see things the same way they do. But the point is that, I try to sit in the arena to be an example of like, you know what, just take the hit. People are going to come after you. I mean, I think I've had like 7 people today just alone telling me I'm an idiot on Twitter, but I don't get bent over it because I'm like, you're a dog avatar. You're a dog avatar on Twitter. You have no skin in the game. You have like bogus names and you're a coward.
Yes.
So I'm going to get upset over that.
Yeah.
Come on, right? So I think we have to toughen up a little bit. And I think it's okay to be a little bit tougher. And this is where I have some problems sometimes with, my friends who follow more of a stricter kind of Christianity vibe, where they're like, don't say that because it's like you can't really condemn people that way, and I'm like, I understand what you're saying, but the problem is, as human beings, we are not wired to react as well to love and positivity and joy and bliss. We are not programmed to do that. We are programmed here with this reptilian monster in our head to deal with problems.
Yes.
So we hear the negative so much more than we hear the positive. So in order to get to people, and I've tried it many different ways online. If I write something that's unicorns and rainbows and positivity and what have you, I will get 0 feedback. But when I use a salty tongue, people come out of the woodwork because the radar goes, whoop, whoop, what? Did she cuss? Or did she really say that out loud? Yeah, I did. I mean, even sometimes like Twitter will ask me, are you sure you want to post that? It'll ask me, it'll give me a screen saying, are you sure you want to tweet that?
Serious?
Yes, didn't make a mistake, Twitter. Thanks for asking about my mental health. I mean, yeah, yeah. But I think it requires that, we get a little bit of a tougher skin And that's what we should be also teaching our children, is that they should have a little bit of a tougher skin, because it's not going to get easier.
No.
So why not give them the skills and show them the examples of what it is to fight for truth? Fight for your values, fight for your morality, fight for your principles, and be okay with people not liking you,
Exactly.
because they will respect you more.
Mhm.
I hate to say that, but they will respect you more because you went, you know what? I don't think so. And you may not like me and we may not be friends, but I respect you because you stood up for what you wanted and you didn't just let me walk all over you. You didn't let the government walk all over you. You
Yep.
didn't let some organization or some system walk all over you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's
Well,
where I'm at.
and I think part of that is it goes into the things that we knew or how we grew up
Yeah.
are not really true. And if I remember correctly, the timing of your post was it after the Super Bowl happened?
Hmm.
I feel like it was after. And so that's the conversation I want to have on here too, the private conversation you and I had.
Hmm.
Um, which was you had shared some things about Eminem online that I did not know about. Or if I had read it, I had totally forgotten. I had my political awakening in 2020. You were clearly way awake before then and knew what was going on before then. And I had discovered some information about him. I think it was like that weekend before he performed at the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
And I'm using that as an example because as I'm putting all these puzzle pieces together of things that he has done and said publicly, I'm like, he's not the person who I don't want to say portrays, but we put certain people, a lot of people, celebrities up on pedestals, and yes, they're extremely talented, yet I get to also vote, if you will, with my money.
Hmm.
So that means that, I get to have a choice. Do I continue to listen to the music and, watch or be involved in whatever he's involved in as well?
Hmm.
Or do I say, okay, no, I'm not going to perpetuate what he stands for. And, I had shared with you that it's kind of like a death of an old self of everything that Carmen once knew of. And that's why I said, let's have this conversation, because I feel like that's the other piece of the death that's going to happen this year
Hmm.
that a lot of people are going to struggle with. And that's their character and maybe integrity, but I feel like it does go to your character. Are you going to,
Identity.
yeah, identity. It's total identity. I mean, I grew up with his music and it's iconic and you
Mhm.
love it, yet it made me physically ill as I'm putting all these pieces together. So that's the conversation that I want to have now is,
Yeah.
what does this next round look like?
Well, it's a great topic. I'm glad you're covering it for your audience. You know, we all experience little deaths, I think, throughout life, and seasons and what have you, and they can be really beautiful and rewarding and needed, and then some can be really hard, to take. And I'm not a huge Eminem. I've never been a huge Eminem fan, but there's certain things that are like, like Slim Shady, like, right? You're like, and you're like, ah, it's hype. Um, and I think the last 2 or maybe 3 years now, I have let go completely of celebrity culture. I could give a what about celebrity culture. Um, and it's not just because they tend to lean left or what have you. I just see that there's so much hypocrisy within that industry. And I was married to an actor for a while. There's so much hypocrisy within that industry. I can't take it. I cannot live in places where there is hypocrisy, and I am constantly trying to check my own. And it is a certain level of hell within me of having to do that all the time, right?
Yeah.
So I certainly don't want to deal with Eminem's hell, right? And his hypocrisy. I'm trying to deal with my own, all right? So, I and people would be like, well, but Kid Rock said this. And I'm like, and it's equally abhorrent. Next.
Exactly.
We cannot give pass. And people were like, well, it's art. And I'm like, so you're going to give somebody a pass for saying that they're going to rape someone else, or sexually assault somebody because it's art? Somebody said that about your daughter, and it was like in a poem. Would you say it was art? Probably not. And that's the hypocrisy that I'm just so tired from, the left. I'm so tired of hearing what they have to say about that, because I'm like, you shot somebody on your film set. You use guns, and then you talk about people how they shouldn't use guns.
Yes.
I want nothing to hear. I want to hear no words coming out of your mouth. None. No words.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop talking. Close the pie hole. Because you don't get to talk when you do something like that. You don't get to have a say in the 2A argument when you shot your cinematographer on your set.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you lose this one. That round, you lose. Okay.
Yeah.
Find another thing to talk about then. It's the same with Joy Behar, and her constant, or Whoopi Goldberg, and their constant hypocrisy. I can't, you just see it on Twitter. I don't follow it, but you can't avoid it half the time because people are constantly reposting. And I'm like, no, we're done. I'm not gonna deal with it.
Well, and that's what I'm hoping people start to see, is the hypocrisy. And it's been happening for so long.
And why are they willing to give him such a pass? Why are people so willing to do that?
That's my question. Because it's okay to let go of the things that have never really been true. It's all been a facade.
Or that maybe it doesn't serve you anymore. Maybe it's okay to admit that it doesn't. Maybe Eminem's music doesn't serve you anymore. Maybe you're going to make room for another amazing artist to walk into your world and blow you away.
Yes.
Maybe you don't have to hold on to that, and that's a metaphor for life. Maybe you don't have to hold on to your trauma as a child and seek 17 years of freaking therapy. And maybe you're just choosing to hang on to it because it's part of your identity now. What happens if somebody told you you actually get to let go of that, and you get to stop letting it hurt you, and you are actively making a choice to participate in that trauma?
Mm-hmm.
And I know people are, and here's what I get a lot. You don't know trauma. You haven't had trauma. You don't know what it's like. No, I have not had the same kind of trauma that a lot of my friends have had, or a lot of people I know or have coached have had, which makes me feel even more qualified, quite frankly, to talk about how you're not getting over those things, right? And how you're not letting them die, right? You need to let those things die, because they are going to constantly impact your life forever, and your children's lives forever, until you get over it. And I have had my actual own trauma, okay? But I decided in the very beginning of that trauma, I wasn't going to let it kill me, because it could have. It could very much have. But I made a decision, like, I'll die. I will die before, all of this is over, and before my son is 18 years old, had to do with him. And I will die before that birthday if I continue to let this hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
So when we allow things to die, there's always going to be a birth of something else, or something that's going to replace it. But I think because people don't know how to replace it, they don't know healthy ways to replace those things. They don't know how, they are so, I think it's just a huge part of it's how it's attached to their identity. And they do not know themselves without those things. They don't know themselves without, their things, literally material wise. They don't know themselves without their trauma. They don't know themselves, with their trauma anymore, because it's like it's always like a story. They don't know how to let go of that identity and build a new identity. Go ahead.
And I feel like that's a piece of the work you and I do.
Yeah.
And help people do. And I still believe, you know what? I've got nothing to back me up on it. It's just pure intuition that's what we're going to experience a lot of this year. I said it like at the beginning of January, I think mid-January, and that if you have not started any type of healing journey, I really think that this is going to be a difficult year for you, because as these truths continue to come up, and you see in front of your face what's really happening, I mean, yeah, you're going to have a choice.
Right.
And at some point, I don't think you're going to have a choice. I think it's going to be literally on your front doorstep.
Well, you pay for it.
Yes.
It's a truth that it's a lie that you pay for. It's a truth that you pay for.
Yes.
Every behavior, attitude, norm, principle, value, moral code, you pay for it. You just have to decide which side you're going to stand on when you do. Are you going to stand on the side of going, I fought for what I wanted and how I believed and how I wanted to live? Or I stood on the side of, I was afraid. I was worried about my money. I
Yes.
was worried about my material things.
Yep.
I was worried that my kids might, be complicated. It might be complicated with my kids. I think you have to decide every one of those decisions, good, bad, or you're going to pay a price for it.
Mhm.
And I would argue that you will pay a bigger toll when you do not stand in the truth space, when you do not let things die, when you allow fear to dictate all of your speech and your actions and your character. There was something, what is it? I think it's Nietzsche said. Nietzsche said, you can always tell a man's character by how much truth he's willing to tolerate. And it gives me goosebumps to even think about that, because that's why I wrote that post. It is hard to be on this island. It is hard to speak up and say the things that are really unpopular. It was hard to even be in my little church group last night and ask bigger questions. I'm God dumb, right? I'm not butts and seats church. I do not know the Bible. I go because I'm open and I want to learn, but I ask really hard questions, and a lot of people don't like that, or they wrestle with it and it's hard for them. And I get it, man. I don't like me sometimes, and I just imagine being in here. Okay. Living with this, okay? I do it to myself just as much as anybody. Like, I do it outwardly. I like asking those bigger questions because it's not about figuring it out, but it is about understanding your role in the world, and using the gifts that God gave you or the universe gave you, however you believe. And I want people to know that there are multiple ways to get to the truth.
Yes.
And I think that's ultimately what God ever wanted for us, is to go, I gave you this gift. I need you to use it. And I need you to be the full expression of that. And if that comes with a salty tongue, or if that comes with a unicorn backpack, I need you to use that. Right. And I think people aren't taking that talent or skill, their gift that they were given, very seriously. And they're very carte blanche about it. And they're very like flippant about it, or they're very scared about it. And at some point, you will pay a price for not doing it. You will get to the end of your life and you'll be like, I never stood for anything. I didn't protect my children. My money, it doesn't even matter. I don't even have it anymore. Or I have all this money and it can't help me. It can't save my life.
Yep.
So understand the fear and be on the right side of it. Be afraid and know you're not safe, but stand at least on the side where you're like, man, that was rough, and I was wrong, and I stood up for what I believe, and I was wrong, but at least I stood up. That builds more character within a person and more confidence in a person than staying quiet and claiming apolitical, or claiming that you don't have an opinion about life, basically.
Well, and don't worry about, for everybody who's listening, I invite you to don't worry about if you're right or wrong.
Yeah. God.
Because that gets to let go. That's a 3D construct. It's a human construct.
Yes.
And just speak your truth.
Oh, human.
I believe that is one of the ways through all of this chaos. It's a part of us standing in our power,
mm-hmm.
and getting to the other side of where we are right now. And it is going to take mass amounts of us to do it, not just you in your space and me in my space. It's so interesting how many, I have one person on social media that keeps coming after me. You're not doing anything. You're not doing anything. You're not doing anything. And I'm like, have you not gone to my YouTube? Really? Because everything is out there. I present it a little differently
mm-hmm.
than people. And I still talk about all of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So don't come after me for not speaking out on it. And
Well,
maybe
it's you taking, like, speaking out is an action. And that's what they're like, "Well, you just talk about it. You just talk about it. You just talk about it." Well, what are you doing?
yeah,
Because talking about it is action.
yes, yes.
Because
Well,
most people aren't.
there's other things people don't see that we do.
Yeah.
For those of you who are familiar with Stand for Health Freedom, not only have I been attending their meetings in person since 2020, that I also take action however often they're asking for action on their website. I'm also not going to be one of those people that publicly just pronounces all over social media. Guess what I just did? I don't need that verification from anybody,
Right, right.
and it's really nobody's business.
Mhm,
Do I encourage other people to go check it out if you're for choice because that's what they're all about?
mhm,
Yes,
mhm. Right,
absolutely.
right.
So yeah, I laugh, and it's the same person every time who comes after me about once a month, and I'm just like,
I've got a few of those from time to time.
it's
But I will
all
say, when you stand up more and you stand convicted and you have craft a good argument, Twitter has been great for helping me craft a really good argument. When you know how to really put your words together and you understand the way that your ability to speak, you've mastered that, people come after you less. And you don't get as much hate because people don't really want the challenge. I get more, actually pushback on Twitter because I'm a nobody over there. I've got like 800 or something followers. I can't get out of the 800s, and I don't even care because that's not why I'm there. I don't even care. I could have 2 followers and be completely content, but I go there to interact and I go there to understand and learn, and I get hammered over there all the time because I always throw my hat in the ring. Yeah, I'm willing to do it.
So my question for you on Twitter, because my experience, I am on TikTok, and now that some of my reels on Instagram, but the shorts on YouTube have popped off. It's more YouTube. So
Mhm.
I'm getting some really interesting feedback on YouTube and TikTok. Now TikTok, I don't even know if they're real people, and YouTube, they are real people, and I'm
Mhm.
kind of like, bots versus real people. And
Right.
so, and some, if I can tell the difference between the two, I just block the bots. So that's my question for you is, can you tell, are they real people coming after you on Twitter, or are they bots, or both?
Um, I mean, it's probably both. I would say they're probably mostly real people. I call them bots because they come there anonymously with no skin in the game. So I often refer to them as the cowards. I'm like, "Oh, look, the coward showed up to the thread." Um, "Oh, goody." I get to argue with a freaking corgi. Awesome. Like, you have no skin in the game. But they're talking as though they're, actual humans. Usually with bots, you can somewhat tell, I think. But they usually, they're making arguments and responding to things, and they're addressing the things that you're talking about. That to me says a human being, even if they are a cat, or a cartoon, which is what you're going to mostly see on Twitter. And people do go there to be the worst versions of themselves, and they don't want to show up as themselves because they're lying to themselves about who they really are. Right.
Yeah.
And when I go there, I'm showing up as like, that's my face, that's my name. Like, you get what you get, and I'm going to show up in my truth here because I think that that's important. If you're going to take me seriously, if I show up as a nobody, then why would I expect anybody to take me seriously here?
Right.
Um, they don't look at it the same way because they're just looking for safety. So they get to keyboard warrior it out. And I'm like, oh, you're still responding. Well, I just realized I don't really talk to cowards. I don't talk to dogs. I don't talk to cats. When you want to come here and be a real human being, Pinocchio, then you can come here and be a real boy, you know? So I think, when it comes to deciphering those things, or, to figure out who you're going to respond to, and take the time with, I spend way too much time on those kinds of people than most people do. And I would argue, do not do what I do. I'm telling you, as the monkey, do not do what the monkey is doing. Um, I always like to have a point, and it is a semantic game for me there. Okay. It is a game. But I would argue that most people don't need all that negativity and nastiness and banter and back and forth. Go there to learn, understand what people are talking about, understand the other side and their points of view and their perspectives. I think it's really helpful. For me, it helps me shape my arguments better because I do a lot of speaking or I do interviews and I want to know what they're saying and how they're crafting the message. I wouldn't spend a lot of time with them either on a YouTube or a TikTok or anywhere really on Twitter. Um, and if they're bots, then I guess you can block them. But if they're showing up regularly and just hating on your stuff, it's like, are they showing up and like on your positive stuff and commenting on that? So you're only showing up to be part of the negative discussion or whatever you perceive to be a negative discussion. You're not coming here to support the good stuff that I'm doing or what have you. So let me just help you and I'll just block you.
Yeah.
Since you can't take yourself out and exit stage right, let me just help you make your grand exit. Because it's sometimes not worth it. I think I just like deleted. I used to have 5,000 friends, on Facebook, and then I deleted 4,500, and then I got back up to 600 recently, and now I'm back down to like, I don't know, maybe 300. Because I don't want to deal with people who aren't engaging in the community and they're only there to gawk or
Good point.
stalk.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not going to get the privilege of stalking my stuff, although they probably still could because all of my stuff is public. But at least it's not weighing on me anymore, right? At least I'm not participating in their non-participation.
Exactly.
Cut them out. Yeah.
Do you have any parting words about, the death to your old self, maybe that grief, standing up? I mean, definitely the time is to stand up right now.
Yeah, I think you can find your own way to stand up, and maybe say goodbye or kill off the old version of you about things that are really important and mean something to you or mean something to your family. I think, I don't want to like discount people who go through grief and go through traumas and say that it doesn't matter and you need to just get over it. I am a humanitarian at heart and I don't want people to think that you can just do that. But I'm also here to tell you that you can just do that. You can just let go of it and not let it hurt you anymore. You can let go of old identities. You can let go of old friends. You can let go of, amassing people on social media for business and still show up in integrity every day, knowing that, you're going to have to pick and choose people at some point and you have to live with yourself every day. You may not have to live with Barbara every day or Jesse or Tommy.
Yeah.
Right? You have to live with yourself. And so you need to make a decision as to what grief that you would like to feel. Which one is going to hurt more, the grief of your losing yourself or the grief of losing Tommy?
It's a good point. It's a really good point.
So make the choice and make it with confidence and know that maybe it's even just a season and you guys will reconnect at some point or maybe it's just you're hitting your next level, like we had talked about one of my friends last night, a new friend said he was stuck and I'm like, maybe you're not stuck. Maybe you're just at this just position and you're hitting your new level and you're just holding on to the old version of yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's why you feel stuck, but really it's just there for the taking. And he's like, oh my God, I needed to hear that, because honestly, we do feel that way sometimes, that a lot of people as coach, I know you hear it, mm-hmm. where people are like, I'm just stuck. And then we had talked about like the birth story and where did you get stuck on your way out? And maybe that's this manifestation throughout your life. And we went all the places last night. It was a very interesting conversation. But I'm like, maybe we don't have, you can choose not to be stuck. Mm-hmm. And you can just go like, hey, I'm open, God. I'm open, universe. I'm feeling stuck and I'm ready not to be stuck. Cool. Exactly. I'm not stuck. All right. So that means that I'm going to be open and to receiving, because if you say keep telling yourself you're stuck, by God, stuck is going to freaking find you.
Exactly. Always does. That's what you're creating in your life.
Yeah.
Well, and as you were talking about grief and letting go of that person, Um, and I can speak into this because it's what I've been experiencing is my family. And definitely, my family doesn't look the same.
I know
And
this has been something you've wrestled with a long time.
it's been, yeah, really rough because
Mhm,
I have stood in my truth of
mhm.
what I believe is my truth.
Right.
And it has impacted my family. And I have been uninvited, which I will share that story here in the next couple months as well on a, you know, on a bigger scale,
Mhm.
because I'm hearing from other people that I'm not the only one. And it is, there is a grieving process that also goes along with that as well.
And that makes a really good point. You make a really good point there, Carmen, because, when you speak up and are able to speak about those grief moments or those vulnerable moments, you're also collecting people who feel the same way you do. And it helps you feel not on an island,
Hmm.
right? I know lots of patriots now, or I know lots of people who are kind of in the same belief pattern that I'm in because I was willing to speak up, right? So you are creating a new circle, a new network, a new community, a niche of people when you do speak up, and then you realize, I'm not alone.
That as you said that, I had you and I, well, we've known each other for a hot minute, for a few years.
It's a feel.
In our former burlesque days. And I think it might have been 2020 when you shared another post and you were like, this is me. This is the rally I went to. And if you don't like it, too bad. And if you do like it, great. And I messaged you because that hurt my heart that somebody would give you hate just because of something that you attended.
Mhm,
Like, that just doesn't make sense in my brain. I think
mhm,
I'd even said that to you.
mhm.
Um, and I was going through that political awakening at that time, and open to having that conversation with you.
Mhm.
And so if you would not have spoken your truth at that time, we may not have reconnected.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's
speak.
it's one of those things that happens on rinse and repeat, that I notice when I'm and I don't do a lot of those long form posts anymore. I just, I get tired of doing it, and I'm a writer at heart, but I get tired of saying things that, I feel like I've already said. But every once in a while, I'll throw something up, and it does hit for people. And I've had people like, even when I got kicked off of Facebook for a while, not, I don't, it was really weird. It wasn't even for anything in particular. Uh, but I just couldn't get into my account. And Todd had posted like, Jenee can't get into her account, find her on Instagram. And people were like, oh my God, no, I can't not have her here. Like, I rely on her, which is like very kind and sweet and what have you. But it does show you that when you do speak up, you build a community of people. And my sphere of influence is very small. It's really small. I've had moments where it's been really big. Usually when it's gotten really big, it's been very much about surface level shallow shit. Sorry, surface level stuff, right? And so, but when I talk about deep intellectual topics like what we're talking about tonight, my sphere gets smaller and smaller, if that tells you anything, but it gets super high quality.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeds me. It feeds
Mm-hmm.
me all day long, all week long, all month long, all year long. And it's less management, and I'm a minimalist at heart, so it's a lot less management on my heart and my mind and my to manage relationships, right? So
Mm-hmm.
know that when you do speak up and you allow parts of you to die, and you go through a grieving process of letting parts of your identity die and what have you, what's waiting for you on the other side of that is quality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's magical in itself,
Mm-hmm.
really.
I want to close with that. I like that. So where can people find you on if they want your silty said?
I'm on Twitter, just Jenee Michelle. On Twitter, that's pretty much where you can find me everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, even on YouTube, which I don't spend a lot of time on doing anything there unless you kind of watch some of our our other alternative stuff, which is like building a boat and military truck. But it's just Jenee Michelle pretty much everywhere, JeneeMichelle.com. Yeah, so that's the easiest way to find me. Even on the new Truth Social, that's where I'll be. Getter, all those platforms, and it's just Parlor, Jenee Michelle, just Jenee Michelle. So
Wonderful.
mhm,
In case anyone would like to connect with her,
mhm.
and very, it's anywhere between inspirational posts to the one that I mentioned at the beginning of this, to make you think. You ask the dynamic questions that
Well, I'll
most
be
of us.
on your side. Like if you're like you want to have a hard conversation and put that out into the universe, I'll be cheering for you. So
Yeah,
yeah, connect with me if you need more of that in your life.
yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking time tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I always love these better conversations. I thrive in having better conversations with people who are real ready to talk about stuff like life, like the real stuff.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You so much. Everybody, if you are watching live, be sure to like and follow. If you are on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast as well, Live in Divine Harmony podcast. And stay tuned because we do have a couple more guests, special guests coming up in the next few weeks. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Jenee. Have a
Cool.
good night.